weird not seeing my hands. I'm like expecting to see myself. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today for our Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Thanks to all of you that could come here together in person for a quorum. Appreciate that. So I will start by seeing if there's any members of the public. There's none here present in office.
I think I'll do the read who's present.
Oh, the roll call?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Jump to the roll call first.
Jay Collins.
Here.
He's in person. Danny Jorgensen.
Here.
She's also in person. Mark Hudson.
Here.
Jonathan Scott. Who's next to me. He's in person. Justin Willett.
Here.
Tony Garcia.
Here.
He's live in person. Jeff Sims.
Here.
He's in person. Mike Williams.
Here.
Also here in person. Gina Evans. Here. She's here. Yes. Sign in. I don't know if Leland's still there or John Patrick, either. You could just put the chat if you can show up, or you can't get there now. Bob Fry or Anna, put you on this.
Hey, this is Anna. I'm on.
Anna. Brian Massaro.
Here.
He's in person. Mike English.
Yes, I'm present. Excuse me. I'm here. Thank you.
Sure. Nicole Sutton or Giselle Cisneros.
This is Nicole Sutton. I'm here virtually.
Thank you. That's everybody. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for that. With that, we will move forward with public comment. No members of the public are here in person, so I'm going to give it a minute. Is there any members of the public that are online virtually that would like to speak?
We've already determined we don't have a fan comp. Is that what we said before the meeting?
Sad. We need to work on that.
Okay, hearing none, I will assume that means there's no public here to make comments. So we will move on to the next item, which is approval of the August 2nd meeting. The notes were attached to the agenda. Is there any comments or questions regarding the meeting notes?
Jay Collins, motion to approve. Jonathan Scott, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, with that, we pass. And I want to thank both of you for, protocol when we're making a motion or seconding or having to speak. Please announce yourself for the recorder so that we're able to easily understand and be able to transcribe the notes. So thank you for that. All right, with that, we'll move on to the first item of the day, which is the TIP amendments.
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. This is Vishaka Raman. I'm MPO staff. I'm TPO staff, and today I'm going to be presenting to you the TIP amendment, the Transportation Improvement Amendment for FY 2021-22. This is the TIP amendment for the West River District Build multimodal improvements, and it's going to the TPO board tomorrow. I would just like to give you a quick update of what this amendment is about. This is a series of 6 amendments that were requested to us by the Florida Department of Transportation. By this amendment, it will add construction funds to the year 2022. Amendment numbers are given, the project numbers are given here, FPN 449008, 1 through 6. This amendment will help to build 12 miles of multimodal transportation safety network in the city of Tampa. It is part of the Tampa's ongoing development in the West River District. I would just like to note that this was awarded as a grant back in 2020, which was a U.S. Department of Transportation build grant. The amount which was granted was $24 million. There is an additional 20% local match, which will be provided by the city of Tampa. So in total, the construction cost is about $30 million, and it will be designed as a design build project. I would just like to give you a quick update about the project location. As you can see here in the map, this covers the western side of the river. The project is in different phases, as you can see, 1 to 6. And by that, it means that the different phases are the different segments of the West River Walk. This project will help to complete the sidewalk gaps and complete the network. So I will just go over quickly which are the roads. This mainly covers Rome Avenue, West River Walk, Platt Street, Ridgewood Park, and Columbus Drive. So these are the main corridors that will be included in the construction. So now I would like to go over some of the benefits of this Riverwalk development project. I would like to highlight that this project was mainly meant for the safety and mobility of the people. As I had mentioned before, it would help to complete the gaps of the 12-mile multi-use pathway, and thus thereby it will create a separate pathway for bicycles and people separated from the vehicular traffic, and it will also add the enhanced crossings at some of the major roadways. This will also provide a safe bike walk network in this neighborhood, thereby improving the accessibility and mobility. Again, as I had mentioned before, this is part of the City of Tampa's initiative to maintain a comprehensive network of sidewalks. And there is a map on the right, which actually is a Google Map shot. I just picked it up from the Google map photo, and I do see that there is some sections of the Riverwalk which are being built here already. So this will go into that project. Another important advantage of this project is that it will help to build the economic growth and provide resilience in the community. This would, by this grant, once the Riverwalk is completed, it will help to bring in more jobs, connect to jobs and residences in this area, and increase the investment into the opportunity zones. It will also provide a long-term sustainable transportation option, reducing the greenhouse gases and providing people an additional mode of walking and biking, thereby improving the health and the overall air quality of the area. So it will also, the design is such that it will also help to increase the seawall resiliency and mitigate any stormwater runoff through the shorelines. This TIP amendment page is just to give you an idea about how this money is distributed. This page is what we use as our official TIP amendment adoption page. And by this, it means that the number you can see, the numbers shown here are the local funds, and the TIGR is the Tiger grant, and it will help you to understand the money, how it is distributed for each of the segments. The amendment number shows which segment of that, and it will also give you the description of the road, where this money falls into, and how this money is distributed by year. This is section 1 and 2. These amounts are for the section 3 and 4, and this is the money distributed for the sections 5 and 6. I would just like to give you another quick update about the public involvement. This is a City of Tampa project, but it is we are just facilitating the amendment process for it to report to Fdot. So most of the public involvement that has been happening through the City of Tampa. I believe I do have a City of Tampa staff here, but the public involvement, since the grant was awarded back in 2020, they have reached out to the West River District, CRA. They have reached out to the Hillsborough River Interlocal Planning Board, Friends of the Riverwalk, and the presentations that are going in front of the board, and the TPO committees and other local agencies will be some of the other public involvement that the city is undergoing. The next steps of this project will be, however, to complete the FHWA grant agreement, program the local match funds, as I had mentioned before, and acquire the NEPA clearance, prepare the design build contract package, and execute the grant agreement. Like I mentioned before, it is a design build construction project, so it will go directly into the design and the construction phase, thereby helping to reduce the time of the entire process. And these steps will be coordinated by City of Tampa, and they will be also coordinating other public involvement processes in the future. As part of the public outreach, what the city of, apart from the public outreach, what City of Tampa has been doing, the TPO board has been doing our own public outreach. This is mainly for the TIP amendment before it goes to the board tomorrow. So what we did is, as part of our overall public outreach for the TIP amendment, is to inform the people, the public, to help them to participate in our process. And the notice on the left side of the on the slide shows that this is where we had installed some of the public signs at some of the key intersections along the Riverwalk, explaining to the public that they can tune in to online to listen into some of the meetings, and also give them the information for who to contact. We also had a Twitter blast, and we also sent emails to the public through our websites and the constant contacts and other social media outreach. So, but this will help people to connect to us, and also we have been receiving a lot of emails and messages in support of this project from the public. So it's really this method we've been using has been helpful to achieve some of the goals that we wanted to. With this, I request if you could approve this amendment and recommend it to the board for approval. If you have any questions, I'm glad to take it at this time.
Thank you, Vishaka. Do we have any questions from members on the committee? I can't. If you're doing it virtually, just raise your hand or speak forward. But so far, seeing none. Just on my own, I feel like this is a great project. Anytime we're encouraging multimodal use and biking and pedestrians is a great thing. My one question is, can you just confirm that none of these phased additions, are they affecting any of the current vehicular volume that's on the roads? These aren't going to reduce lanes or anything like that, right?
I'm sorry, I could not hear your question. Can you please repeat it again?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can, but I was just trying to make sure I could see you, which I'm not able to. That's fine. Go ahead with your question, please.
Well, I was just saying, first off, that I like the project. I think it's a great thing. My main question is whether there's any effect to the current capacities for vehicles as part of any of these phases. In other words, is there any plans to reduce the number of lanes on any of these sections?
Oh, okay, thank you for the question. Actually, this would be a more specific design question. Like I had mentioned, we are only facilitating the amendment part of it. So I would probably defer that question to one of the city's staff. I believe Brandy is there.
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Hello, TAC members. I don't know if kind of hard to see you all, but I definitely recognize some of the voices. This is Brandy Nicholas with the City of Tampa. Hi, I'm the Infrastructure and Mobility Program Coordinator, and I'm just standing in. Nina Mapolo from the City of Tampa is our project manager, but she is out of office this week. So your question about the multimodal path, basically the completion of these 12 miles of this this path. Your question was, is it going to affect any of the number of lanes on the roads? I'm going to make a note of that. I'm assisting with a lot of our public engagement and stakeholder coordination, and I think that's a really good question to add to our FAQs, because I think that's something that we need to make sure that we truly have a coordinated response on. But my understanding right now is I think that would come in the project details. So, but I could be wrong. Danny, also, I know you're there. I don't know if you have anything to add. I'm sorry, put you on the spot.
We're still in the project development phase. Generally, if we were to reduce a lane, probably from 4 to 3 lanes, we have a center turn lane, which actually doesn't decrease the capacity for vehicles, but it adds capacity for pedestrians and cyclists. So our goal is to look at capacity holistically and improve level of comfort for non-motorized
Right.
vehicles. That's our focus.
And I would assume for Brandy and for Danny, the roadways themselves are constrained with the right of way. So you're either going to reduce a lane or at least reconfigure the roadway.
Yeah, it could be lane repurposing, lane reallocation, where maybe it's too wide right now to encourage high speed. So our goal is always to lower the design speed and provide as much space as possible, buffered space for our most vulnerable users.
Right. Okay, and like I said, I think it's a great project. I mean, especially from the environmental side, we love the idea of having people out and active without being behind the wheel. I'm just curious on whether it was going to affect flows or so forth. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to read one from the chat from Justin Willits. It was a question on, does this include a span under the Kennedy on the west side? There's a follow-up that says it looks like it does. I don't know if we'll know that answer yet, but.
I'll let Brandy answer.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to switch to my headphones. I think I can hear you all better. Vishaka, I think we have in the agenda, if you want to, I don't know if you want to refer to the study area. So it's always easier to, to talk from a graphic. I don't know if.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me pull up that again.
Sure.
I'm trying to get into the presentation again. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so
Is this
that
a good
website. That's perfect map. That's great. And as you know, because we're at the early stages of concept development and cost estimating, but so I wanted to kind of preface what I'm about to say with because this is going to be the 24 million that we received the build grant from Federal Highway Administration. It is a construction project with costing about 30 million. And these segments, not really phases, these segments that you see here, the one that Justin was asking about is 4. It's the one on Rome Avenue. And it does include, if you see, it goes underneath the interstate and then it goes all the way down to Rome Avenue. Am I saying that correctly? Yes. Okay. So I think his question was already answered kind of for just reviewing this map, but yeah, that is, I think that answers it. I don't know, Justin, I didn't see the chat to see if he had anything to follow up with that.
I'm good, thanks. I spotted it after I typed it.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, good. Thanks. We appreciate the input though. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, we're looking for a motion to approve the TIP amendment 449-008-1 through 6. Can I get a motion?
Jonathan Scott, motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Jay Collins, second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Vishaka.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to the next item, which is the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan Performance Targets.
Okay, that's again me, Vishaka Raman, for the records. And I need to switch my screen, so I'm trying to see what's the best option. Can I give it back to Priya, and then Priya, can you make me the organizer again?
Sure.
I'm trying to see how to close this. Gina, I'm going to give it back to you, and then maybe you can make me. I don't see Gina here.
How about now?
But can you see the right screen here?
No, we're still seeing the recommended action page.
Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint slide now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So this presentation is, I'm presenting this today on behalf of Johnny Wong. TPO staff. And I'm presenting the 2021 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan Performance Targets. It's a mouthful, so we will go with the acronym PTASP from now onwards. The performance measures for the PTASP originated initially from the MAP 21 safety measures from the federal government, which means that the MAP 21 requires all the agencies, state agencies, transportation agencies, and the TPOs to adopt the safety target for the 7 measures. And out of this, we are going with the safety here. And in safety, you can note here that there are 7 performance measures. I will list them out: the fatalities, the fatality rate, the injury, the rate, the safety events, the rates, and the system reliability. And the rates are always calculated per 100K vehicle revenue miles. So by fatalities, these are the 7 measures that we need to keep target of for every year. And and under every measure, we have 4 modes. So in total, we will have 28 measures that we will be recording and keeping target of today. And hopefully we should be getting approval for this today for the 28 measures. And I will go over them in detail one by one. So what does it mean by the safety concerns? What are the definitions that the MAP 21 adopts for the safety concerns? Which is a fatality can be anything, which could be a bus collision, it could be a suicide happening in one of the modes, it could be a workplace related accident, which means that it could be a mechanic involved in an accident resulting in a fatality in one of the bus locations, or it could be any acts of God, natural disasters, etc. Injuries mean that it could lead to transporting the injured person to a hospital, and by that it could happen either on vehicle or it could happen in a facility or at a station. The other safety events which could happen are due to vehicle collisions, fire or smoke, derailment, or evacuations happening at any of the modes. And system reliability just means that the number of miles that the vehicle travels until it reaches a failure. So it could be any regular vehicle failure, it could be a sudden power disruption, it could be signal failure, or any of the system failure. All of these are safety concerns, and these are what MAP 21 wants us to track these happening under any of these circumstances. I would just like to explain to you the process and schedule for PTASP target setting. You can see here that there are 3 stages of it, and the MAP 21 originally established the targets in July 2018. So it's been over 3 years that we knew that we had to adopt it, and it was scheduled to be adopted in July 2019. That was the original intent. But due to COVID and due to some other, they were also resetting their targets and reiterating some of their measures. So that led to such a long delay. And this year we will be adopting it. So the transit providers and the transit agencies are the first in the state that need to adopt the target. And you can notice here that HAT adopted its target on January 4th of this year, and TBATA adopted it on April 23rd of this year. So between now and then, the state should have adopted the PTASP target. Unfortunately, the state hasn't adopted it yet, but we do hear that September 30th is the final deadline for us, which is kind of late in the year, but hopefully from next year onwards, we will be adopting it much earlier in the year. So in this process, the MPO and the TPOs must adapt the safety target by September 30, and we will be using that as the year 2021 targets. This is another slide which will help you to understand how this process works. The safety overview can be almost divided into 3 sections, and this is what will help to lead this will help us to develop the goals and how to maintain it. So I'll go over one of them one by one in detail. The first one is the coordination, and this is the initial step that we need to follow. By coordination, we mean that the TPOs, the state, and the transit agencies coordinate and make sure that everyone is on page with the target setting goal and everyone knows what the goals is, and we are able to make sure that we are able to adopt it. The next one is the safety investments. The safety investments just means that how much dollars we are spending for each of these safety category, and we need to ensure that it does work. If not, we need to make sure that we are able to move the dollars and make the needle move on. So that's why the target set tracking the safety investments is another important goal and to complete the process. The third one is just accountability. As of now, we do not have a procedure, a set procedure in place for how we adopt the safety targets, but going on in future, we will have we will be responsible for setting a process for how to put this numbers in place, and we will be accountable for the agencies and vice versa. So this will help us to complete the goal and keep it moving forward. And now I will go over the transit safety targets by each mode. And by each mode, I mean that I will go over the numbers and the graphs. Some of them will have graphs and some of them will just have tables. And please keep in mind that the fatality rate has been 0. The fatalities have also been 0 across the modes in the past years. So we will keep that target and hoping that we will continue to maintain that number. The first one is the streetcar injuries and rate. So we have been tracking these numbers from 2016. And if you notice here that 2016 was the number where the streetcar injuries were the highest. We had about 4.47 injuries, and the rate was, we had about 3 injuries and the rate was 4.47. From there on, it almost dropped every year. And 2020 was a year we had COVID, so we did not have any record numbers for that. And for 2021, it's an average of the 5 years, and we estimate that the number would be 1.8 with an injury rate of 2.09. And we hope to keep this target moving forward. The second one is the streetcar safety events and rate. And again, in 2016, you can notice that the numbers were really high. We had about 13 events, and the rate was also pretty high at 19.36. It's also a reason possibly because the vehicles were driving into the path of streetcar. They did not see them. They did not notice the signs. Afterwards, HART told us that we spoke to some of the representatives, and they told that they would keep up with their signage and also help with some safety measures and maybe physical barriers, so that would help to bring the numbers down. So looking at those 5-year average, we can see that we can keep a target of events at 5.2 and with a rate of 6.03 for 2021. And this is the table which just shows you what I explained in the previous 2 graphs. Currently, the fatality and fatality rates are at 0. The injury, we would like to keep the target at 1.8, which is a current number. The injury rate at 2.09, which is a current number. The safety events at 5.2, which is again the current number. The rate at 6.03. And for the system reliability, which is the number of miles that the streetcar will go without until it fails, we would like to increase the target from the current number of 857 to 900. So that's the target we hope to keep in for 2021. But this is the second mode that we are going to be evaluating. And for the fixed route injuries and rate, again, the numbers have been going up and down over the years. It's also dependent on the usage. The rate has been going up and down also depending on the usage. And for 2021, looking at the averages for over the 5 years, we would like to keep the injury number at 115 with the target of 1.49 for 21. Sorry. The second one is for the fixed route safety events and rate. This follows a similar trend to the injuries rate and the injury number. And you can notice here that compared to the 5-year averages, we would like to keep the events number at 81.6 with a rate of 1.06 for 2021. This is again the table. There was a fatality back in one of the bus events. So literally that was 0.2, which we would like to keep the target at 0, fatality rate at 0, the injuries at 115, the injury rate, which is a current rate at 1.49. Likewise, for the safety events, we would like to keep the number at the current number of 81.6 with a rate of 1.06. We would like to keep the target for the system reliability up from the current rate at about 19,547. The third mode is the hard flex and the hard plus safety events and rate. And these are the paratransit service what hard offers. And for the events, we would like to keep the number at 86.8 number and the rate at 5.80. For the hard flex and the hard plus injuries and the rate, we would like to keep the number based on the average of the 5 years. We would like to keep the number at 5.2 with a rate of 0.35. So this is again the table which explains how the numbers have been currently and what are the targets we are anticipating. For the fatality, we would like to keep the number 0 and the rate with the rate of 0. For the injuries, we would like to keep the target at 5.2 with an injury rate of 0.35. For the safety, we would like to keep the target at 86.8 with a rate of 5.8. And for the system reliability, we would like to increase the number from the current number of 9,763 to 10,251. This is again the other mode that TBARTA operates, which is the TBARTA van pool. And these numbers have been provided to us by TBARTA. The rates here, the fatality rate, fatality, injury, and injury rate are all adopted at 0. The safety events will be targeted to be set at 0 from the current 1. And the safety events rate will also be anticipated to keep at 0 compared to the current number of 0.04. For the system reliability, this number shows 0 here, which actually means that TBARTA Vanpool has never had a system failure in the last 5 years. So, which actually means it could be infinity or not accounted. So that's what the 0 means here, that they never had a system failure and they did not have any issue in the past. With this, I move on to explain to you the next steps would be to adopt the numbers, what we presented today here. So if today you approve and the board approves this number tomorrow, we would like to keep this number and report it to FDOT to be transmitted to FHWA. We also would like to develop a performance methodology, as I had mentioned before, to evaluate the impacts. And also we would like to adopt a process that can be incorporated into the TIP and the LRTP in the coming years. So that would be the hope for today's presentation. And I would request you to approve that safety targets. If you have any questions, I can take it now. Thank you.
Okay, Vishaka, do we have any questions from the committee? What's that? Okay. Yeah, for me, I've seen similar numbers. I know these are very difficult to generate. It seems like for the most part, these are being based on the 5-year average.
Yes.
Which is a reasonable way to go. Of course, we don't want to lose track of the overarching idea that we want to find ways to continue to reduce them. One argument can be made that all goals should be 0, but we, certainly one injury is one injury too much, but there's also the practicality that's a difficult process to, in this kind of world and transportation, it's just difficult to do that. So it's a tough thing. My only real question was on the system reliability. I was trying to get a handle on that one. I noticed that one changed from the current and for the target. And just maybe give a little bit of background on what those changes meant. And other than that, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, I have been delegated to do this presentation today, but at the same time, this numbers was provided to us by one of the consultants who did the work. So it was not, it was not us who came up with these numbers. However, I can get you back on a background of how these were developed and how these numbers were set at that number. I can get back to you with an answer for that if that would help you.
That's probably fine. I mean, I'm sure they were vetted. I was just curious where the math came out because they varied. And is the higher number a more lenient goal than the current? I mean, the number is higher. Does that mean it's an easier target to meet?
Yes, that's my hope too, because for all the injury and the fatality and these events, we are trying to keep the number and the rate at 0, which is the lowest. So for the system reliability for each category, I would assume to keep it at the highest, higher than what is currently. So that's my hope that that's the reason why it could be higher than the numbers you see current. But I will get you back on how these numbers were arrived at with a better answer for you.
Okay. All right. Is there any other comments or questions? All right. With that, we're seeking a motion for approval of the safety performance targets for 2021. Can I get a motion?
Danny Jorgensen, motion to approve.
That was Danny
Danny.
Jorgensen.
Thank you, Danny. Can I get a second? Thank you, Tony. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that a late aye on approval or a opposition?
That was a late aye. Apologize.
Thank you. All right, with that, I think that closes out the action items and we're moving on to
All right.
status report.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Vishaka. The Hillsborough County Complete Streets Guide.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Lewis. I am an executive planner of the Hillsborough County Community and Infrastructure Planning Department. And with me is Paula Flores from GPI. She's a fantastic transportation engineer with a great understanding of pedestrian and bicycle safety. Before I hand it off to Paula, I want to talk a little bit about a prologue for Hillsborough County's Complete Streets Guide. And Paula, if we can get the presentation up, I'll just keep going while we're working on that.
Can I have permission to share?
Priya, would you please give Paula Flores?
There we go. Ready.
There you go.
Perfect, we can see it.
All right, let's just go to the first page then. So Hillsborough County is in the middle of updating the transportation element of its comprehensive plan, and it will be rebranded as a mobility section. Part of that mobility section will be the basically augmenting the collector and arterial functional classification network with form through a context classification system. So all of our roads will have a functional classification as they always have, but will now have a context classification that's based on the future land use. So that road that you build that's going to last a very, very, very long time is built for what's planned to be there instead of what has been there or is there now. So in this way, it's bridging the transportation, future land use, and the community plans that, neighborhood plans where they might have an area that they want to be more walkable in nature, but not urban. It's bridging those pieces of the plan by making the road part of the community. It's a placemaking element now. Let's go to the next slide. But we can't really take the complete streets context-based classification system as far as it naturally should be taken with the resolution of a comprehensive plan. In a comprehensive plan, we can know whether something's rural, suburban, or urban. But what we can't know is whether that rural thing is planned to be a rural activity center, like a crossroads with a school and a church and a corner store, a rural neighborhood, or what we normally think of as rural as like farms and preservation areas. And then with the suburban, we can't know whether or not a suburban residential area in the comprehensive plan is going to be served by more of a simple suburban residential road with a lot of residential driveways on it. These are your older collectors in the community. Or one of the more post-war suburban neighborhood connector roads that basically serves as a feeder to all the local neighborhood streets. Same thing with urban areas. You can't really know if it's a main street or an urban area neighborhood through the resolution of the comp plan. So the Complete Streets Guidebook refines that comprehensive plan context-based classification and gives the ultimate designer of the road the ability to understand what it's going to be in the future. I'll give you an example of how this is actually played out by looking at an area in Ruskin on the next slide. So this is the Home Depot on the corner of 674 and I-75. If you guys haven't been, there's a great German restaurant in that shopping center. I hope it's still open. So this all has, if we click through to the next thing, it all has the same land use. It's CMU 12. And if you look at the functionally classified roadways in there and assign them a context classification, if we click to the next thing, you can know that one of those roads going through there is suburban residential, and two of them are suburban commercial. Then there's all kinds of other things you can look at in terms of the CMU 12 and know that it's suburban and not urban because of the way growth is planned in the area, but that's a longer story. And then, but what type of suburban commercial is that? Suburban residential, you can see it's a classic suburban connector, but the suburban commercial, there are two different things going on there. One, when you're closer to I-75, that road on the left is a regional commercial road. That's the Home Depot. It's the big box shopping center that's serving a huge market area. The road on the right, further from I-75, is a neighborhood commercial road. What you see on that road are small, basically dental, minor medical offices, sole proprietor type things, where it's more of a park once area and serves a smaller market area than the Home Depot, obviously. So that's what the context-based classification system evolves into the Complete Streets Guidebook. And Paula's going to go into more on the Complete Streets Guidebook now.
Thank you. So you may be wondering, why do we need a Complete Streets Guide? Why is this so important? So transportation networks for people, for walking, for riding on a bike or even a scooter or taking a bus are very complex. And as our region continues to grow, the demands will continue to grow, and so do the challenges of this additional growth that will bring, including safety, congestion, environmental, and even health concerns. So this guide is going to provide a new approach to providing more transportation choices, that safe streets, connected networks that will encourage more walking, rolling, and eventually reduce carbon emissions and ensures healthy outcomes for all while providing a much better built environment in Hillsborough County. So the Complete Streets Guide will better serve all users of different ages and abilities. So the draft Complete Streets Guide has 7 chapters as shown. I'm going to provide a very high level overview of what is included in each of these chapters. So the introduction, let's jump right into that. You know, the introduction chapter sets the stage for the entire document by truly articulating the purpose of the CS Guide and how it relates to the mobility elements of the comprehensive plan. It defines complete streets. For example, a complete street is where the entire right-of-way is planned, is designed, and is operated for all modes of transportation and all users regardless of age or ability. But there is no singular design prescription for complete streets. Each one will be unique and should respond to its community context. People are also at the heart of Complete Streets approaches, right? So the guide embraces design as a tool to advance the health and safety of the community while promoting sustainable transportation options and vibrant public places. So this chapter also outlines health, equity, safety, mobility, environmental, and even economic benefits. So to ensure the outcomes promised in the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan can be delivered, the following principles work together to deliver a very safe, healthy, and more equitable street system. So the CS Guide principles focus on delivering streets that are, 1, user-centric, support the needs of all users, it will provide connectivity and protects the most vulnerable, people walking or riding. 2, modal respect, designed for human scale. It prioritizes safety over traffic flow. It creates self-enforcing streets. It provides facilities for every mode and even encourages mode shift. 3, context sensitivity. It avoids adverse impacts to communities, to people, and it aligns speeds with design and activates public spaces, encourages safe and even desired accessibility. And 4, sustainable. It increases street canopy. It talks about sustainable transportation choices. It outlines flexible design for adaptation, and it preserves natural features. So chapter 2 covers the elements of complete streets. So streets are no longer viewed only as what happens from curb to curb, but rather how it connects to the adjacent land uses. So streets must be context sensitive. A typical street has multiple street zones, such as frontage zone, pedestrian zone, furnishing, and even landscaping zone, and even a new zone now called flex zone that talks about parking and bike facilities. And of course, there's always a travel way on the road. But collectively, all of these zones may actually provide very different functioning streets. So this chapter also outlines physical elements within these realms, such as traffic calming, smart streets, speed management, target speed, and access management. And each of the elements must be considered to ensure all users are addressed on any given street and road to address the connectivity and the safety concerns in our communities. So here are some of the graphically representative elements outlined in this chapter. So look for a lot of new items typically not seen in Hillsborough streets, including traffic calming treatments such as curb extensions, raised pedestrian crossings, median refuges, speed cushions, and a lot more. There are a variety of safe intersection control options such as protected intersections, roundabouts, and even traffic circles. This chapter also talks about road diets and lane narrowing or repurposing of street width, which is a major consideration for constrained conditions. And the chapter also informs on the need for pedestrian and bike-friendly wayfinding that tells people how far and how long it takes to get to their destination by bike. Another point to look for in this is that the guide itself is very graphical in nature. It provides great visuals from national best practices by FHWA, from NACTO, from ITE, and other communities, and even some regional Tampa Bay examples. Chapter 3 is about placemaking and its connection to health outcomes. So chapter 3 contains guidance and informs design on the importance of creative placemaking, the elements for a street that will improve aesthetics, livability, walkability, and quality of life. So making streets and roads convenient and comfortable is essential in encouraging and enabling more people to walk and ride a bike or take transit for a lot of shorter trips. And this is the central aspect of street design that assists in mode shift. So placemaking is a collaborative design process that engages the public to envision transportation facilities that are functional, that are beautiful, and a source of community pride. So the chapter has sections on landscaping, about street trees, amenities such as benches and bike parking and bollards and lighting, and even public art. So the chapter provides guidance on how public art can be integrated as gateway features. The use of lighting and banners in town centers, or the use of painted intersections and crosswalks, the use of art in roundabouts, and even the importance of building murals to activate space. Chapter 4 is the street typologies, and they're illustrated for each of the rural, suburban, and urban contexts. So each of the typologies are unique to the level of intended users, function, and context. For example, the neighborhood commercial typology shown portrays a corridor where small local businesses such as hairdressers, convenient marts, restaurants, can support adjacent neighborhoods. So the typologies have different elements for each mode of travel. For example, each element is classified as high priority, which is the dark orange color. There are lower priority elements, the light orange color, and even some typologies will show optional elements. Amenities such as lighting and benches and others are also shown appropriately for each typology. In addition, the target speed range, for example, in this instance, 25 to 35 miles per hour, shown on the bottom center, is based on national best practices for each context. With each of the typologies, a summary table is also provided on various desired characteristics. For example, this is the rural C1, C2 summary table that illustrates all the considerations such as user features, travel zone, pedestrian zone, bicycle facilities, transit, traffic calming, speed management, placemaking, and even building form. So I'm going to now flash through. There are 11 different street types that have been identified in this guide. For example, there are 2 typologies for the rural context on the left side of the slide. In a rural environment, the street elements are few and minimal to preserve the rural nature of the adjacent uses, but still provide the basic elements for each travel mode. For the urban context, C4 on the right side of the slide, as can be seen, there is a drastic change in context and uses versus the rural typology. So in urban C4 environments, look for more user-centric elements and placemaking that respond to the higher levels of vulnerable users. For the suburban context, there are 2 residential typologies shown on the left side of the slide, and then there are 2 town typologies on the right side of the slide. Again, each typology categorizes different accessibility functions related to the adjacent uses and different levels of users. For suburban commercial, there are 3 typologies identified with different street elements, and these streets may contain, local commercial establishments or regional big box or strip center commercial or even industrial uses. So planning and designing new streets or roads is easy. However, this guide provides ample flexibility to retrofit existing streets where right-of-way may not be available to include all the elements identified. So adding multimodal facilities is not an optional element, as multimodal facilities are what is missing on most roads. But when faced with limited right-of-way, one or more of the following strategies can be used to make room for the needed multimodal facilities, such as reducing lane widths or lane narrowings, reducing number of vehicular travel lanes such as road diets, removal of on-street parking or only provision of parking on one side of the road. So design professionals should evaluate trade-offs to come up with the feasible solution that best accommodates all modes of transportation. Chapter 5 is all about intersections and mid-block crossings. So intersections are the greatest source of conflicts for all modes of transportation in Hillsborough County, and they also represent some of the greatest inefficiencies and inconveniences found in today's street network. So intersections should be designed to maximize the safety of all users, not just vehicles. So this chapter covers most of the critical elements at intersections. So look for guidance on crossing types and then frequency, how often you should put crossings. Look for guidance under the geometry section that talks about the impact of curb radii, for example, on speed and pedestrian safety. Look for importance of breaking up long crossing distances with pedestrian refuge islands. Or look for traffic signal control principles that optimize safety, prioritize multiple and vulnerable users, and assist with speed management. Chapter 6 is about integrating transit in our streets. So public transit serves a vital transportation function for many people. It is their access to jobs, to school, to shopping, to recreation, and many other daily functions. And nearly every transit trip begins as a walking trip. But the disconnect between transit and road planning means transit riders are often left to wait at bus stops marked by a lone post in the grass. So for transit to provide optimal service, streets must accommodate transit vehicles as well as adequate and safe access to the bus stop locations and stations. And while it is expected that Hillsborough County Area Regional Transit, or HART, will specify transit services, shelters, and other amenities for a given quarter or stop, it is the responsibility of Hillsborough County to contemplate the planning and design of the bus stop locations and provide adequate pedestrian and bicycle access to them. So in addition, the transit integration chapter, we show options for bus lanes or BRT lanes, and they are illustrated in this chapter. So the CS Guide design flexibility can easily adapt transit corridors through lane conversions or eliminating travel lanes or removal of medians to accommodate transit. So the Main Street typology, for example, shown on the bottom left, could resemble the transformation of Nebraska Avenue, or the C3 regional commercial typology on the bottom right illustration could resemble the transformation of Big Bend Road in South County. Chapter 7 is about a few other considerations. And these considerations include how to accommodate and address emergency vehicles, implementation, technical urbanism, or what you refer to sometimes as quick builds, maintenance, adoption of the guide, and even some potential regulatory changes and requirements. So to conclude, the Complete Streets Guide is intended to inform and assist a wide variety of local government officials, planners, designers, stakeholders, and even decision makers about incorporating complete streets elements. The guide was developed consistent with a variety of national, state, and local street design guides that include FHWA, NACTO, National Coalition for Complete Streets, while also incorporating best practices from leading municipal complete streets guides from a dozen other locations such as Miami-Dade, Boston, Deerfield Beach, Montgomery County, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, etc. So institutionalizing these best practices will ensure we will build back a better transportation network for generations to come. With that, I'll hand it back to Matt.
Paula, we are in the middle of our MPO committee outreach section. This is the TAC. The next one is livable roadways, and then we will go back into our caves and revise the guide to complete it based upon all the input that we've received and all the ideas that we get from you and the other committees. And then we'll finalize it once the mobility section of the comprehensive plan is complete. With that, I'll hand it back to the chair.
Thank you, Matt and Paula. Appreciate that. It's very detailed. Do we have any comments or questions? Yes.
Are these topologies going to be interwoven into the land use map? How is the document going to be used?
Did you hear that?
I heard, how is the document going to be used? Are the typologies interwoven with land use?
Are the topologies that we just saw, are they going to be integrated somehow into the land use map?
No, the context classification system is integrated into the land use map. And that takes us as far as the future land use categories and livable communities chapters of the plan can get us in terms of what they say. The Complete Streets Guide takes the next step and it tells you whether or not that C4 road is a main street or a neighborhood street. It tells you how to understand that.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Gina?
I just want to make a comment if the committee members are finished. I just wanted everyone to know that the Hillsborough staff, our land use and transportation staff spent a lot of time reviewing the guide. We're really impressed with how comprehensive it was. It's a planner's dream. And I hope that it makes its way, or at least is implementable in the future as the development or redevelopment of the tech manual happens. That there'll be ways to allow some of these things to move forward. But I was really impressed with it. Our whole agency was happy to see it.
Okay, thanks, Gina. Any other comments? I mean, I certainly appreciate how detailed that your presentation and the level of detail that is, document seems to have. It's refreshing. And again, kind of echoing what I said before, it seems like you're encouraging the alternative options for traditional transportation with bikes, pedestrians, and so forth. So it's certainly a mission, and I definitely implore that. Anything else?
This is Nicole Sutton with Department of Health. I just wanted to say that it was a great presentation, and also really appreciate seeing that placemaking and health put together with some of those dimensions of what health means.
Can I ask a question?
Who's speaking? Bob. Oh, is that Bob? Yes, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, and just curious for Matt and Paula. I understand on the complete streets and everything, and I agree. I think that I'm all for everything that you're talking about. My question is, how does it interact and how does it fit with the limited access facility, and how does that play into allowing the volumes and such to stay in levels that you want to see? It seems to be a question that from our organization, for example, we would love to have some. How do we work on that besides working at the ramps and trying to make them as safe as possible? I'm just curious, how does it fit in, and is it addressed in the book or the presentation?
Good question, Bob. I'll start and then Matt may be able to chime in. So complete streets, when we think of complete streets, we think of all streets, but a lot of these principles are not related necessarily directly to how you're going to be designing limited access, if it's a Thea property or the Selman Expressway, or if it's going to be 275. But the moment the ramps coming off some of these higher, freeways touch down, if it's downtown or if it's on Dale Mabry or if it's any other corridor, then very specific attention needs to be paid as to making sure that the design of that touchdown point, that clearly the drivers know that they are in a different location, right? They no longer can just drive at 55 miles per hour or higher speeds, but now they have to be more attentive to all the other users of the roadway. So we do not have a section on here that talks about some of those touch points, but we can certainly add a little bit more about, some of the treatments that are very appropriate at some of these touch points. And I think the TPO's speed management action plan went into a lot more talking about some of those touch points and what treatments would be appropriate. But that's a very good question.
No, thank you. And like when you said about it, and I said that would be something like that would be fantastic, because it would help some of our other agencies to deal on the limited access side a little bit more on how do we do that and work that into our future projects, into our future plans to deal with that transition point. And the other question I guess I would have on that, Paula, would be if there's been studies on, and I know I'm going to use what is the right mix, and I know that's a subjective thing, of limited access to none, and given more of those choices, because like for example, when they say New York, you could do away with a limited access and no one would miss it. Well, yeah, they've got 55, but when you have 3, that's a different situation. So how they fit in, I think, would be a discussion that'd be worth having, and to see, how it plays the role with the rest, as well as how we can manage those touch points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Does anybody else have anything they wish to speak on the topic? Okay, thank you. With that, I think we're going to move on to our next item.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Next item is the Strategic Intermodal System Policy Plan Update. Roger.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me. This is Roger Roscoe with Fdot District 7 Tampa. As part of the upcoming SIS Strategic Intermodal System Policy Plan Update, we are providing you today a video to kick off the updated period and to provide you with details about what the update will entail and why it is so important, and how you can get involved and provide comments to the updated plan. In your packet is a quick start guide detailing the entire policy plan update, the process, and comment forms that can be utilized, as well as an email to address to submit comments online if that you would also prefer. which will go to our District 7 Sis Coordinator, Lori Marable. Specific comments and questions related to the update are welcome at any time on the comment form. Our contact information is in your packets. We're going to be coming back to you later this year once the plan update and the process has been finalized for any additional details that central office in Tallahassee may have going forward. So please sit back now and enjoy the presentation.
And Roger, I'll also add that thanks to District 7, what came from headquarters is no longer like a 2-hour presentation, but like 13 minutes. So.
You're welcome.
The Florida Department of Transportation is grateful for this opportunity to present this update to the FDOT's Strategic Intermodal System Plan. Our goal today is to inform you about the purpose of this plan, why it matters, highlight the plan elements and emphasis areas, and discuss the proposed focus areas to get your input. The SIS is a statewide network of high-priority transportation facilities, including Florida's largest and most significant airports, spaceports, public seaports, freight rail terminals, passenger rail and intercity bus terminals, rail corridors, waterways, and highways. These facilities represent the primary means for moving people and freight between Florida's regions, as well as between Florida and other states and nations. Florida established the SAS in 2003 for many reasons, all of which are still relevant today. A primary reason was to help meet growing demand for moving people and freight as our population and economy continue to expand. The SAS was envisioned to support Florida's economic competitiveness by connecting our regions to markets within our nation and worldwide. Many industries require access to multiple modes of transportation, providing seamless flows of both people and goods. In addition, the SAS was intended to support the state's community planning goals by focusing transportation investments on existing transportation hubs and corridors, so we can maximize the use of the most current system. Finally, the SIS was intended to focus our essential state resources on those transportation facilities most critical to Florida's economy and quality of life. Florida statute requires the department to update the SAS policy plan at least once every 5 years, following the update to the Florida Transportation Plan, also known as the FTP. The SIS policy plan is developed by reviewing the most recent FTP goals and objectives to ensure the SIS policy plan is in line with the FTP. 2045 is the horizon year for the current FTP, and the SIS policy plan is an implementation action of the FTP. In addition, the process considers current trends and conditions, including applicable performance measures, to ensure the plan addresses key issues and opportunities for the SIS. The process requires collaboration and input gathered through various partner and public outreach efforts, such as partner briefings, social media outreach, virtual outreach, and surveys. The 35-member steering committee that guided the update of the FTP in 2020 is assisting with the update of the SIS policy plan this year. A public comment period will accompany the draft final plan in late 2021. Following the public comment period and final management approval, the final plan will be adopted. The SIS is made up of 2 basic components. 1, SIS facilities, which meet high levels of people and goods movement, generally supporting major flows of interregional, interstate, and international trips. And 2, strategic growth facilities, which are smaller in nature and generally are designated to support niche markets, underserved geographic areas, or other unique economic communities. The SIS includes 3 types of facilities. 1, hubs, such as airports, seaports, and other types of terminals. 2, corridors, such as highways, rail lines, and waterways. And 3, connectors, which link the hubs and corridors or hubs to other hubs and military access facilities to corridors. The policy document generally addresses and includes the following topics. It defines objectives for how we plan and manage the SIS, consistent with the broader goals for the FTP. It outlines focus areas for the SIS that are to be addressed over the next 5 years as part of the plan update. It sets forth policies or strategies directed towards these objectives and focus areas. And lastly, it sets forth implementation guidance on how to carry the plan forward. The current 2016 SIS policy plan objectives still correlate to the current FTP goals related to mobility, transportation options, and economic competitiveness. They also continue to represent the long-standing framework of the SIS and its original intent. The 2022 SIS policy plan will focus on these 5 areas. Safety. How does the SIS, as a key element of the state's transportation system, contribute to our vision of eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on Florida's transportation system? Resilience. How can we reduce vulnerabilities of SIS infrastructure to risks including extreme weather, sea level rise, coastal and inland flooding, wildfires, and extreme heat? Technology and innovation. How do we prepare the SIS for emerging technologies, such as automated, connected, electric, and shared vehicles? Urban mobility and connectivity. How do we address the impact of congestion in both major and developing urban areas on the efficiency and reliability of the SIS for inter-regional travel, especially in areas where there are limited options for adding capacity to SIS corridors or limited modal alternatives to SIS highways? Rural mobility and connectivity. How can the SIS support rural revitalization and economic development and facilitate emergency evacuation and response while supporting environmental stewardship goals and community visions? For each focus area, we will present some high-level ideas for improvements. Building on the FTP and SHSP, the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, we have identified several potential safety-related policies for inclusion in the SIS policy plan. Here are some of the ideas based on input received so far. Increase the emphasis on safety as a factor in setting priorities for SIS projects. Provide more flexibility to include safety features as part of SIS capacity projects. Address engineering and operational solutions related to emphasis areas associated with higher fatality rates on the SIS. An example could be to add guardrails, rumble strips, or clear zones to address lane departures. We have identified several potential resilience-related policies for inclusion in the SIS policy plan. Here are some of the ideas based on input received so far. Consider vulnerabilities in the community and environmental screening process as part of SIS designation. For example, if there are 2 options for a connector and one is in a storm surge zone, designate the alternative. Identify resilience strategies as part of capacity needs in projects. For example, use ITS or sensors to detect hazards and share information. Expand SIS funding eligibility for adaptation or retrofit of existing infrastructure. An example would be elevation change, base layer hardening, or stormwater management to help maintain the SIS facility's safety and capacity. We also might consider expanding the definition of capacity to include increasing redundancy or providing alternatives to mitigate vulnerabilities on the system. We have identified several potential technology-related policies for inclusion in the SIS policy plan. Here are some ideas based on input we received so far. Redefine SIS capacity projects to include technology solutions for improving efficiency and reliability. In other words, define SIS projects not just as increasing the physical capacity of a corridor, but also improving efficiency and reliability. Expand SIS funding eligibility beyond what is in the current plan to provide technology infrastructure, such as electric vehicle charging stations, smart signals, locational reference markers for connected vehicles, broadband for transportation purposes, etc. Provide more flexibility for funding emerging mobility solutions, such as quick response initiatives that could be funded in the current year. We have identified several potential policies regarding urban mobility and connectivity for inclusion in the SAS policy plan. Here are some of the ideas based on input received so far. Redefine capacity projects to include mobility and reliability improvements, similar to the concept discussed under the technology section. Prioritize opportunities to improve interregional travel on the SAS. An example would be projects to create express or through lanes, create bypasses or other alternatives to bottlenecks, support truck parking or other freight accommodations, etc. This also could include providing more options for travel between Florida's largest urban areas, such as passenger rail or intrastate air service. Provide flexibility for use of SAS funds on non-SAS facilities when that is the best option to improve performance of the SAS. For example, if an SAS corridor is heavily congested and there are no viable options to add capacity to that corridor, could we use SAS funds to improve a parallel, arterial, or transit corridor if that improvement will pull local trips off the SAS and preserve capacity on the SAS for long distance travel? We have identified several potential policies regarding rural mobility and connectivity for inclusion in the SAS policy plan. Here are some of the ideas based on input received so far. Reassess the SAS highway corridor criteria, particularly how we identify facilities capable of being improved to controlled access standards. This also could include how we consider context classification in the SIS designation/community and environmental screening process. Where there is a choice, focus SIS designation on the facilities in areas suitable for higher capacity corridors. Redefine capacity projects, in this case to include rural connectivity and through traffic improvements. This might include small projects, such as adding turning lanes or geometric improvements to improve SIS corridor safety. It also could mean expanding funding eligibility for broadband and other rural technology solutions that would improve connectivity. Strengthen rural corridor planning processes to identify programs of projects for both SIS and regional/local corridors. For example, think about how we improve a corridor like US 19, but also the connections from that corridor to rural activity centers. This could include stronger collaboration with local governments on how rural connectivity can support economic, community, and environmental goals. We value your input. Without it, the SAS cannot reflect the feedback from our partners and the public. What else do we need to do to improve these 5 focus areas? There is a public question form available if you would like to give us input. Please give your form to the FDOT representative, or you can email it or mail it to Lori Maribel, FDOT District 7 SIS Coordinator. Her information is at the bottom of the comment form. Following our targeted outreach efforts, we will draft recommendations for the plan based on input received. We will review the information with the FTP/SIS Implementation Committee and FDOT management. The draft plan will be available for public comment at the end of this year on the Systems Planning website. The final plan is anticipated to be adopted by early 2022. Thank you for allowing us to present the SIS Policy Plan update.
Everybody, thank you very much for your patience and your time. As Gina jokingly said, yeah, when we got this from Tallahassee, this was very, very long. And thank God Lori Maribel and Peter Moss were able to chop this down to what it was. So again, thanks for your time, your patience. I know we really don't like to do long presentations, but this is, as you can see, it's very important, very strategic. So again, I'm the messenger for this today. If you do have any questions, please, I can't stress enough. We really, if you do, please send them over to Lori and we'll make sure that we address those and get it going. So Gina, thank you for your time and your assistance on this.
Okay, great, Roger. Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions? Not hearing any, so I just encourage everybody, for me personally, I mean, the one item I like to see is, and it was touched on in there, is resiliency. I think the, the storm events and sea level rise is just getting, it's coming in waves, no pun intended. And I think it's something that, we really need to be conscious of moving forward. So this type of, I'll call it a document, but it's the kind of area where it can at least be, discussed and considered. So that's my personal 2 cents. But
sure. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much for that. As always, you always have really good feedback and comments for us. So thank you.
Okay. All right. With that,
take care, everybody. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Roger. All right. Next item up is the Park Speed Zone Pilot Study.
So Lisa still will need the controls for that.
Well, Gina, I'm assuming you're making me presenter?
Yeah, I think Priya will do that.
Okay.
Look, if I get up.
I'm not seeing a request. Let me minimize some things.
Priya, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Please hand it over to Lisa.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay. Let's see. Which screen are you seeing?
Lisa, your email.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm moving this over then. Woohoo.
Okay, now we do see the presentation, but in like notes.
Yeah, I had to switch screens, and so hold on a second. I know how to do this. Show. Now it won't flip to the wrong screen. Yay. Okay. 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 As many of you in the room may have noticed earlier, I'm having webcam difficulties today. So normally I would turn it on and be a little more personable as I'm presenting, but that is not going to happen today. And I got all dressed up for you and everything. But anyway, Lisa Silva, TPO staff. I'm the project manager for the Park Speed Zone Study. This was an idea brought up by some of our committees. They said schools are special areas that have special speed and applications around them. So parks are also special and important. So maybe we look at that. So it's another step in our Vision Zero implementation. As many of you know, we have a Vision Zero action plan we adopted around 2017. It was followed up by the Speed Management Action Plan that Paulo was referencing earlier. We've done some Vision Zero high injury corridors, and now we're doing this park speed zone. Because with 200 people killed and more seriously injured on our roadways every year, we still have much to do to get towards zero. This is another special step in that. So we kicked off the Speed Management Action Plan, and I will let you know that we've already gotten feedback from our stakeholders. The name is a little misleading. It's not just speeding in and around parks that we're looking at. We're looking at a whole host of safety countermeasures. So please don't get hooked on the name. We will be rebranding it based on that feedback. So this is a pilot project, but it's going to represent, we budgeted for 3 different park types throughout all of the jurisdictions of Hillsborough County. The overall purpose is to develop a process that can be replicated to the other parks throughout the county. The first step was to identify which parks to include in the analysis. With over 440 parks in Hillsborough County and its 3 cities, we needed to have a transparent and equitable process in the park selection. Once the parks were selected, we've completed the preliminary existing conditions assessment. And so we've hit tasks 1 and 2, and I'll be sharing the highlights of those today. We have also kicked off the public outreach process and would love for you guys to help us get the word out. With COVID going on, we're trying our best to do get meaningful feedback online in low touch situations. And then, as I mentioned, the final step is to develop the countermeasure toolbox so that we can have specific things and the unique characteristics to each location. All right, so when we went through the park selection, there was a lot of data, a lot of parks. So we sorted through all of that. We sorted it into, there were actually 4 different park categories, and we selected 3 of the different types and made sure that we had a very diverse range of contexts. So the different park types that we developed in partnership with our different stakeholders for this purposes is a local park, which is a park that's less than 5 acres. It's typically adjacent to residential. People more often bike or walk to these parks, and they typically include, play structures, picnic tables, shade structures, and benches. There are approximately 200 in our data set. In the passive regional park category, these were larger than 5 acres. There are no program activities or staffs. There are a lot of more conservation kind of areas. You might think they'd be mostly in rural, but they did. There are regional passive in all settings throughout our community. So, and then bus service is typically not provided to this type of park. There were approximately 115 in this category. Active regional parks are parks that are larger than 5 acres, but do have those programmed activities. You could see little leagues and, a lot of active uses at there. There's also 115 in that category. Then we looked at linear parks. These typically follow some kind of natural feature like a shoreline or waterway. Bayshore Boulevard Linear Park is one of our most prominent in the area. There were 200 in the unincorporated, all told, there's 200 parks in the unincorporated area, 195 in the city of Tampa, and 23 each in Temple Terrace and Plant City. So then how do we select the parks? Well, we went through an evaluation criteria. So we developed 9 different categories, and we had them in these things. So we had equity, safety, and other. And then we applied weighting to each of those. So we are very, as you know from our non-discrimination plan update, we have a strong commitment to equity. So we weighted it with 40 points. We weighted safety with 40 points, and then gave 20 to the other criteria. So in the interest of time, I am not going to go into all of them. I'm just going to hit some highlights. So we used our communities of concern to help us with our equity. We looked at where there are investments coming, and then we looked at things that were close to our high injury network, the number of killed and seriously injured, especially the bike ped within a half mile of a park, proximity of hard braking events in a month, density of residents and jobs, and then close proximity to another community thing like a school, a library, or activity center. And then if a park were closed but ranked up there and we weren't able to do public engagement, we moved on. So, okay, so which ones did we select? Dun, da, da, da. So in the local park selection, we went with Sulphur Springs Park. You can see that Burrell had a few more points, but it had some challenges. So Sulphur Springs was seen as another better option. Plus, we kind of got a twofer here because River Tower Park is a regional park and it's adjacent. So our consultant is looking at both parks collectively. On the active regional park, Copeland Park was selected. University area park received a couple more points, but there have been a lot of planned and already underway improvements to the university area, and none at this time for Copeland Park. So we're seeing that as be not repetitive or duplicative efforts. The linear park, this was a smaller category. So as mentioned, the river, well, no, I didn't. The river walk was oddly ranked a little higher on this, but it has a lot of, it's a special area. So we looked at what else is in this category. So Fremont Park was in there, but it was only a quarter of a mile long. So it didn't have any different context. And again, this is a pilot study to develop so that we can apply this to other parks. So Upper Tampa Bay Trail It's very long and goes through rural, suburban, and urban context and a lot of variety of different crossings. So that was selected. Okay, so existing conditions. So we looked for examples. Oh yeah, we've looked at nationwide best practices of, there's not a lot of park speed zones out there, but we are studying those that are out there. And then there's a lot of great information in the existing conditions reports. They're very detailed and thorough, and they're posted on the website. So since you are the technical advisory committee, you guys might actually love to see that. Some of you were on the stakeholder meeting last week and got to go over this, but some of you were not. So I am, putting a plug in to go check those out. So, and especially would love to hear from you, especially these city folks. If there's anything going on in and around Sulphur Springs or Copeland Park that we should be aware of in our efforts. All right, so Copeland Park, some of the key findings. This is kind of interesting. You can see the cell phone data of where people are, where their phones live at night and where they travel to and from during the day. It's all anonymous, but we did use that to help us understand where the people are traveling to and from to the park. So there are a 1 to 3 radius. There is inconsistent and uncomfortable pedestrian facilities all around this park. Even the entrances are not designed to get humans into the park, just designed to get cars into the park. There's little to none bicycle facilities, and has some extra barriers that are created by Fowler Avenue and the railroad track. On Sulphur Springs, you can see it's got a different density. So there's a lot. This is the largest walk-up park in the city of Tampa, and you can tell that by the data. So that's more of a 1 mile radius. And again, very inconsistent and missing pedestrian facilities and bicycle facilities. We did look at, there's some creative opportunities to reallocate some right-of-way to enhance that. So we're hoping that will be in the countermeasures toolbox. Also did look at the speed data, and it looks like that some of the speed limits can be reduced without changing travel times. On Upper Tampa Bay Trail, it's way less dense. It's definitely a regional park with people driving to and from the trailheads mostly. Although even the trailheads aren't designed with great access for the non-motorist type. So a lot of opportunities to improve that, a lot of maintenance things that we have observed. And then also some of the major roadways and or lower speed roadways around there, looks like maybe we could propose with some engineering solutions, some speed management. Okay, we are in the public outreach feedback stage, so I expect all of you to go online and complete the interactive map and survey. We have both options, so if you're very visual, you can do the interactive map. If you just like to answer some quick things and type in your issues, great. The interactive map will even let you take photos of the problem and upload it directly into our input things. It's in both Spanish and English. Let's see, then, oh yes. Wade Reynolds has the university area trail alignment study going on. So we're doing some companion initiatives that way. And then later in the phase, we'll be following up with our countermeasures to get some more feedback. So here's that website that I've been referencing. Everything's on planhillsborough.org, and then you can type in park study and it'll pop up, or just hit the link. There's QR codes all over in and around the parks. We have yard signs posted and some acrylic flyers, and we've been dropping off flyers at the parks and things. So if you have any other e-blasts or things that you think anybody would benefit from hearing about and getting to participate in our study, we would greatly appreciate it. Besides the park speed zone name change to make it a little more clear that this is a safe access to park study. Let's see, and then, making sure that we had a comprehensive countermeasures. Can't think of anything else right off the top of my head, of course. that we've had, but I have notes on all the things that were proposed and shared. Oh, we had some good stuff. So that concludes the presentation. I'm available for questions.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Do you have any questions? Well, while we're waiting, Lisa, I'm assuming you guys have been working in contact with Hillsborough County Parks and Rec?
Yes, we have park staff on each of our stakeholder meetings. So, and luckily we've got a fellow that's just joined the TPO, and she was a park ranger previously. So she's been helping me get the information about the study and in their Trailblazer newsletter and, you know, some other things like that. So yes, Hillsborough Parks and Rec, and then City of Tampa Parks. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because that seemed like an obvious connection, especially for publicizing, and maybe actually at the 3 parks that you're targeting to start with, maybe some kind of, you know, info spot. So because they're going to be the people that are frequenting those parks are going to be the ones most interested with that initial stuff. So that would be, but it sounds like you're very comprehensive in your review and so forth. So I think it's a good project, and a lot of, with, you know, what you say, 400 plus parks, a lot of potential moving forward. So
yes, thank you. Yeah, 440, and we're just doing 3, but again, the toolbox will be something that you could apply to any park.
Right, exactly.
Or, you know, customize.
So, hearing no other questions or comments, I think that we will move forward. So thanks, Lisa. I think we have our last item coming up, which is the hard transit-oriented development pilot project.
Great, and Frida, that's Sarah will be presenting that, so if you could give her control, that'd be great.
All right, do you see my screen, everybody?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Sarah McKinley, TPO staff. Today I'm going to be discussing, sort of giving you the update on where HART's transit-oriented development pilot project is. This is an FTA grant, Federal Transit Administration, that HART received in December of 2019. We kicked off the study in March of 2020 and have been working closely with both the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Planning Commission staff, as well as TPO staff and HART staff, all coordinating on this project. As far as the study goals, this is, again, looking at transit-oriented development along the corridor between downtown and USF, looking at protecting the communities with the character that's already there, looking at livability and resiliency, also encouraging a diverse mix of transit supportive uses by looking at the different housing, workspaces, shops, and such along the corridor, to create complete, safe, walkable, and bikeable streets along the corridor and throughout, as well as ensuring context-sensitive buildings and public spaces, and then improving the walk-bike access to transit. As far as the study progress, we have been looking at the conditions along the corridor. So what is there today? There's been a series of working group meetings that have been going on throughout the last year and a half, as well as looking at different strategies that can be implemented along the corridor as well. All right, so as far as what is TOD, many of you are already familiar with the concept, transit-oriented development, looking at how to capitalize on the access with enhanced transit. A strong focus of this, again, is walkability and activity, looking at that first mile, last mile solutions, and ensuring that there are different opportunities for mobility, bike share, car share, and micro mobility as those come to our community. As far as where they are with the study, the consultant has put together the context assessment. So this is looking at those addition or existing conditions, as well as the briefing book, with updates as the study continues. We are working in conjunction with other efforts that are along the corridor. The Heart Arterial BRT or Bus Rapid Transit Study has been moving along in conjunction with this. Again, looking at conditions and improvements along the corridor, as well as the Tampa Streetcar extension, the modernization and extension of Palm Avenue along Florida and Tampa Street. So this is the study area. It is the southern portion of downtown through the Heights up along Tampa Street and Florida Avenue, crosses over on Linebaugh to Nebraska, and then east along Fowler up to the USF or University Area Transit Center. As far as the context along the corridor, this is looking at the existing land use. As you can see, a lot of the heavier uses or more commercial can be found along the southern portion and northern portions of the study center, with mostly residential throughout the middle, again, and the Heights. There is the opportunity with the existing retail spaces that do front Florida Avenue. So looking at maintaining that and opportunities along there, as well as sort of that north of the river area where we have the Water Street and some of those bigger areas, the old dog track and such, that could possibly be redeveloped as well. The southern portion and northern portions, again, are expected to see a high growth rate throughout this. So there's a lot of the opportunities to make sure that we can have these policies in place as those areas do redevelop. This is also a large portion of the underserved communities, again, in that northern and southern portions of the corridor. Again, this is looking at the percent below poverty. Those populations, again, mostly in the northern and southern portions, and then same with the zero vehicle households. The next bit that the consultant looked at was sort of the form and character. We do see sort of very diverse forms along the corridor, starting with downtown, Stints, then we move into sort of the traditional Main Street when we get through Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, more of the mid 20th century Main Street. And then when we get north of the river, that's where we see the audio-oriented community centers, as well as the auto-oriented regional centers around the university area and the mall. This graphic's just showing sort of which areas have been identified for possible redevelopment or development within the corridor. Those darker pink there, sort of the non-residential opportunities, and then residential in the lighter pink. Great. As far as the plan strategies go, this is sort of what was gone over in some of the workshops that they had in the past, looking at improving walkability and biking access to transit, promoting the affordable housing, and then also encouraging TOD character within the corridor. So as far as the improving the walking and biking conditions, these are two pictures that were taken virtually across the street from each other. This is along Florida Avenue. This is showing largely the existing conditions where you see the narrow sidewalk, no buffer between the roadway, gates sort of very limiting the width of the sidewalk. And then there's the new development that's across the street that the building was pushed back slightly to allow for wider sidewalks, buffering between the street to provide safety, as well as some opportunities for landscaping as well. They also looked at the existing crosswalks and the distances between those, as well as there's a couple pedestrian crossings in purple there that are coming online. So as far as some strategies that they looked at, exploring the speed management and the signal timing. So as many of you know, the TPO has worked hard on the speed management plan. So being able to try to implement some strategies from that. looking at additional opportunities for more mid-block crossings, improving the markings and lighting that are there today, and then also streetscape and shelter improvements for the BRT stops as well. The bicycle opportunities include improving connections to existing and planned trails. That's something that we've been looking into with previous studies we've done, as well as the expansion of bike share and micromobility options. And then as far as development regulation, require modest front setbacks to allow for wider sidewalks, as well as limiting the front parking and driveway cuts. Great. As far as the affordable housing goes, what are some strategies we can use for this? This is just looking at the sort of rental affordability market as it exists today. There's the legally restricted affordable housing that has regulations where affordable housing must be. Then there's the natural occurring. This is sort of the market of affordable housing and where that exists. Both of these are looking at 60% under the annual median income. And then there's also just the consumer-driven or market-driven higher rent housing, which is people over that 60% of the AMI. As far as the affordability and housing within the study area, that northern portion is where you see more of that naturally occurring affordable housing. And then as we get further south into the corridor and then to downtown, of course, there's really no affordable housing in those areas, or limited. As far as strategies that can help with addressing the affordability issues along the corridor, looking at different programs that can be operated locally to build or maintain the affordable housing, looking at some regulatory options as well. There's also ways to streamline the process, the review process for implementing affordable housing, and then looking at different funding sources that might be available through different programs. And then also tools that garner partnerships that would allow for additional affordable housing as well. As far as the makeup of the housing in the area, there's this sort of phenomenon that was occurring, that the missing middle is sort of an issue within the corridor. So looking at sort of smaller footprint that typically could be considered or help with the design and landscape of the community, looking at accessory dwelling units up to sort of lot splits, some of like the casitas that we saw in Ybor, where they split the lots there to build the smaller footprint houses, and then looking at sort of like townhouses and smaller apartment options, as well as live work spaces. Right, and then as far as looking at the developed and underused areas, as well as redoing some of those auto-oriented sites. Again, these are going to go through the TOD place types that have been developed as sort of a planning tool that can be helped, especially as redevelopment comes through. They can be used as foundations for the comprehensive plan policies and additional guidance on sort of the appropriate form and scale of buildings to help with the context of the communities. So these are the different, I guess, TOD centers that were developed, as well as looking at the corridors in between the stop locations. And we'll go through each of these. So first one, the southern portion, again, downtown, looking at the most transit-rich portion of the region, continued infill and redevelopments, the highest density, regional employment centers, as well as other entertainment and sports, cultural education events occur down here a lot, looking at the mixed uses of the office and residential, as well as the building forms. We have the tall buildings with structured parking, active storefronts, and the more walkable streets with streetscapes. The next is our urban centers. This is looking at Palm Avenue. Then there's also the suburban retrofit of the Waters Avenue and University Mall, as well as the employment intensity of USF and the VA. As far as looking at the urban centers, these are more intensive development with the large blocks of vacant underutilized sites. Again, thinking the dock track and that area. These are phased development of larger sites as well, looking at community centers, commercial activity, higher density housing, as well as education and employment. The building form tends to be sort of that mid-rise building with the active ground floor, again, surface parking and structured parking behind the buildings, and walkable street and streetscapes. This is sort of looking at what can be done for the suburban retrofit, looking at, again, Waters, as you see, new buildings along the corridor, mid-block parking, as well as phased development of the street sites. And these are just some examples of what are considered urban centers. As you see, again, mid-rise buildings and active storefronts, and then walkable streets. The TOD centers, these are looking primarily at the BRT stops within Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, and along Fowler. These are just some ideas of what can be considered the TOD centers. These are a little less intense of the height of the buildings, but again, still there's active street or storefronts and streetscapes. These are looking at infill opportunities along the primary stops, looking at community centers and activities of higher density. This also includes that missing middle in the housing. So as you get off the streetscapes or the street fronts, transitioning the housing intensities as we move further away from the corridor. And then the street form, again, 3 to 5 stories aligned along the sidewalks, all those sorts of things. So yes. And then this is looking at the opportunities along Fowler Avenue, again, fronting along the street with the parking in the back structured, and again, 3 to 5 stories, lower building heights, all those. And then we get into the TOD corridors. These are sort of the sites in between the stop locations, largely again in Seminole Heights area, Tampa Heights, looking at the Florida, Nebraska, Fowler corridors. They have the opportunity for incremental infill and redevelopment on those auto-oriented underutilized sites, the missing middle, to transition between the neighborhoods behind the corridor, and then looking at neighborhood supporting uses and diverse housing. These are less intense, 2 to 4 story buildings along the sidewalks and lower building heights with the mix of ground uses. And then we have the TOD neighborhoods. These are where we look at mostly just residential. Again, the missing middle that can be implemented here, the addition of townhouses and such with less intensity. So then these are the stop locations that we just discussed. As far as the next steps, the consultant is working on refining these strategies and recommendations. We are planning a workshop with Planning Commission members as well as the TPO committees. We will we'll finalize that date any day or any time now, and we'll make sure that you have that, and we'll notify you before that occurs. We're looking at late October, possibly early November. The consultant will be holding a series of workshops as well that'll focus on the Palm Avenue station. Again, those are dates that are being determined again in late October. And then they plan to finalize everything by the end of the calendar year, and then sort of hand it off to the Planning Commission, where we'll work on refining again for some of the policies in the comprehensive plan. So there's the project website that is also on the agenda write-up for this. So You have the link for that. And then these are the contacts of the staff that is working on the project. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Sarah, do we have any questions or comments? Yeah, I think it's a good study. It's certainly a primary area when it comes to Tampa. There's no doubt about it. So it's a major corridor, and connecting with USF and downtown is always a big analysis point. So it's certainly warranted. I guess for me, it's just I'm curious to see how things are going to go forward. So I look forward to seeing the progress. Justin, you have a comment?
You're muted.
Oh, Justin, we lost you. Maybe you can type, okay, is he typing in the chat? So I know he did that before. He was about to say how wonderful everything was and how much we're gonna try to make it happen. I'm just making that one up. I don't know.
Okay, well, is there any other comments? I don't think so. We'll see if Justin wants to shoot some into the chat. I'll go ahead and move forward. We can, if you just want to hold on for a second, Sarah, in case he has a comment to make. Is there any old or new business that any of the committee members want to bring up? Okay, October 4th is the next meeting. I'll go back. Justin commented, just letting you all know Nicole isn't with us, so I'll be DPM moving forward. Okay, that's part of it to the contacts. Okay, thank you, Justin, for that. All right, with that, I think we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
We're hanging in there, Ryan. Jonathan. Yes, I do. Would you want to?